I want to start by acknowledging that I'm joining today from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. As a settler on these lands, I'm thankful for the opportunity to live and build my community here. And I'm especially grateful for beautiful days like the one we're having today in Vancouver. Our various speakers and participants today are from across Canada, and I'd encourage you to just think about acknowledge the lands that you're joining us today from. I'm excited for today's discussion on intellectual property. IP plays an important role in today's business landscape. Understanding and leveraging IP is critical for innovation and to drive long-term sustainable economic growth. At NBC, we are committed to growing British Columbia's economy by making equity investments at Series A stage and onwards in high potential businesses that will bring about sustainable and inclusive prosperity for our province, which is why we're excited to support this discussion in partnership with Innovation Asset Collective and Innovate BC to support entrepreneurs and business leaders like yourselves with the knowledge to align your IP strategy with your business objectives. Today, we have gathered a great lineup of speakers who are experts in IP law, business strategy, innovation management, and startups. They will provide insights on how to effectively manage your IP strategy as you navigate the challenges and opportunities of scaling up. With that said, I would like to introduce Peter Cowan, the president and CEO of NBC. With over 25 years of leadership experience within Canada's innovation ecosystem, Peter has an extensive background across startups, multinationals, venture capital, government. He's recognized leader in intellectual property strategy with more than 70 patents filed in the clean energy sector. Prior to leading Innovate BC, Peter was the first CEO of Intellectual Property Ontario, where he launched innovative IP programs that helped researchers and companies maximize the value of their IP. Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Mike and IAC at the team for having today's program set up, as well as the team at Innovate BC. So before I get started, I was wondering actually if I could have Mike introduce, or Mike, you can introduce yourself, and as well as have our speakers introduce themselves. I think we missed that piece at the beginning, so I'd like to make sure each have 20 seconds. So Mike, if you can give a quick intro of yourself, and then I'll dive into the questions after I work with our two panelists.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mike McLean. I'm the CEO at the Innovation Asset Collective. We're a not-for-profit organization funded through ISAID from the federal government as part of the federal IP strategy. And our mandate is to work with Canadian clean tech companies to improve their ability and capacity to develop IP strategy, to compete more effectively in global markets, and to improve their freedom to operate in those markets. So addressing IP roadblocks that they may face as they grow their businesses.
Great. Thank you very much. And Raj, if you can introduce yourself as well.
Oh, hi. My name is Rajkumar Padmawar, President and CEO for ASAsoft Canada Inc. We are based out of Victoria, BC. We're into grid modernization and manufacture critical products that go on power lines. It's mainly having to work with the components that actually are responsible for most outages that happen during, any of the natural disasters like forest fires or storms or rainfalls. This is exactly where our products kind of excel in having to modernize the grid. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And Roya.
Hi, I'm Roya. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Ligh+weight, where we are revolutionizing the toxic game of colorants by introducing the next generation of 100% sustainable colorants that we grow from microorganisms like bacteria in a circular system. So we are aiming to make sure that beauty and harmony can coexist together.
That's great. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to chatting with the three of you for the next 40 minutes or so. And I believe the panelists can drop questions in the Q&A section, and we'll get to those towards the end of the program. But just to get us kicked off, Mike, last week it was announced that you had renewed 2 years of funding. So I'd love to get your reaction to that, where you see IAC fitting in the ecosystem, and how that is supporting partnerships that we have with groups like Innovate BC and NBC.
Yeah, thank you for that, Peter. We were very excited to get that news last week. IAC was founded 4 years ago as a pilot project of the federal government to really test the concept of an IP collective and to see if we can really have an impact on Canadian clean tech companies. And I think that refunding announcement was a strong indication that ISAID and the federal government feel we've really succeeded with that pilot effort, and that funding allows us now to build towards a sustainable future for this organization. Really proud of the work we've been doing. We've signed up over 250 companies as part of the collective, and really working hard to build education and training that advances the capacity of the leaders of those companies to understand IP strategy and to build the IP practices within their businesses that they need to develop IP positions that are going to be meaningful and help them compete and win business, and to address, again, the freedom to operate piece I mentioned so that they can address obstacles to that growth more successfully. That's really at the macro level how we're working with companies. The other piece is our mandate is focused on clean tech companies, but we're developing a lot of content and a lot of data that is useful for a broader set of companies around the Canadian ecosystem. And that's where we plug into partners like Innovate BC, other provincial organizations, other federal organizations that can make use of that and provide access to some of that for a broader range of companies. Because really, at the end of the day, we're talking about how do we impact the prosperity of the Canadian economy? How do we set up high growth companies with a greater chance to success? And we're huge believers that ownership of IP is a key lever in creating more sustained growth of our technology ventures. And we want to be a part of that across the country and realize we're not going to do that on our own. We need to be part of an ecosystem that helps deliver that.
Amazing. Great. Thank you very much, Mike. Raj, I'm wondering if we can jump to you for a second. I'd love to understand a bit more about your organization. You've got some great innovative solutions in the clean tech sector, and I'd love to understand how your business model integrates, advanced materials with sustainability, and then where some of your breakthroughs are going. So maybe you can talk for a few minutes about that.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to share the ASAsoft that is pioneering and innovative solutions in the clean tech sector. So basically, for us, sustainability isn't just the buzzword, but it's been core for everything that we do. So our business model literally evolves and revolves around the integrated advanced materials technology, which is with sustainability principles, and also to create products that not only meet the highest performances, the standard, the safety levels, but also to minimize the environmental impact. So the intent here is to actually have the environmental impact as a byproduct, continuing to design the solutions which actually do the proper fit for outdoor applications. So our recent breakthrough achievement has been the development of our high voltage lightweight insulators. Just to kind of give you a principal aspect of it is we are replacing a 20-pound traditional insulators on the power poles to say 3 pounds. And these are meticulously designed using advanced materials like lightweight. These are durable, highly efficient, has a self-cleaning properties, which also work to minus 80 degrees, like going down as cold as Antarctic regions, and also to work that same materials for very high temperatures like Death Valley, California. So here, the lightweight, the durability, the high efficiency, significantly reducing energy losses in electrical transmission and distribution becomes more of a byproduct here, as that is the main component that gets into it. And by having to leverage this cutting edge technology, we've been able to create the insulators that not only outperform the traditional technology, which has been used since 1900s, and also to reduce and lower carbon footprint.
Okay, that's great. And so the topic of the seminar was aligning IP for your business. So where does IP fit into your growth story and your goals and plans for the next few years?
So what we have seen is products are manufactured. Every product is manufactured in every form and shape these days. So with about 5 million of our products actually, which have been field tested in about 19 countries, one of the aspects that we realized is IP is not just that as a whole product, but every little thing that goes into that particular product. So it could be, if we were actually going to be doing a corrosion resistance. So now corrosion resistance is not just for the metal products, but it's also for the composites that we use. It's also for the polymers that we use. So in case of IP, we are able to actually break down into these little units and start to, leverage on having to go and file those patents. Now, in case of where we're getting this kind of support and encouragement is actually to work into that ecosystem. What we have first and foremost and direct use of IAC resources, which has been very paramount for us.
That's great. Thank you very much. Roya, wondering if we can chat a bit about Light+. You blend design and science to create sustainable materials, but wondering if you can talk a bit or elaborate a bit on the core technology that defines Light+ and how you think about sustainability as well as you're growing your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to zoom out a little bit and then dive into Light+ after. So as you mentioned, I come from a very unique and unconventional background of blurring the boundaries between science, nature, and design. Each one of them offers a very novel perspective to firsthand understand the issue from multiple different angles and then explore possible ways of thinking outside of a box to address these issues. My critical and agile design thinking approach and training, combined with my deep scientific research, validated my belief that true multidisciplinary collaboration is the key to tackle some of these complex issues that we are experiencing today. As this reflects in all aspects of our work at Light+, it's not just really about the dynamic work structure that we have or innovative solutions that we bring and introduce to the world, but it also is represented in our collaboration with our tiny teammates, the microorganisms. So I'm in particular emphasizing this because it's very important to think about innovation from a broader aspect and not just like narrowed down vision. So speaking of materials, I consider them as a very powerful tool capable of fundamentally solving big issues of the time. It mainly goes back to shifting our behaviors towards building a cleaner future. And if you think about it, the materials are an essential part of every single second of our lives, from the garments that you're wearing right now, acting as second skin on your body, to basically every interactions that we have with our surroundings. So their capabilities goes beyond making our world experiences tangible to actually shifting the way how we live and operate in the world. Working with biology systems for years made me realize nature has been mastering sustainable systems for a long time before we humans even existed on this planet, with microorganisms leading this charge. So in other words, nature masters the art of coexistence. So for me, it was always about why not taking a page from nature's playbook and learning from its genius. Inspired by this, Light+ is leveraging functions of microorganisms to introduce 100% sustainable colorants that we grow from microorganisms in a circular system. It meets industry demands from all different aspects of color variety, performance, cost, and yet remains 100% truly sustainable. We have found a way to marry technological advancements like biomanufacturing, which there's a lot of unique innovation in there, and nature systems to grow the future of color in a non-harmful process, making sure that, like I mentioned, beauty and harmony can coexist again together.
That's great. Thank you very much. And same question I had for Raj as well. Again, where does IP fit into your story and how you're trying to grow your company and scale your company, but also make sure it's protected?
Of course. Everything that I was just saying is a very big introduction to say that at Light+, we are constantly pushing the boundaries of innovation, whether it's developing new technologies, enhancing new ones or existing ones, or finding a very, very unique, creative ways of addressing any issues that we have, and all of which has unique IP structures within it. And it's been really great to work with IAC on that because as an early stage company, a lot of the times there are areas that we may not necessarily be able to deeply dive into. And as Mike mentioned earlier, I really like how he put it about meaningful IP strategy building and not just thinking of IP as an asset for, attracting investment as such, but actually incorporating it into our day-to-day practice has been really great.
Great. Thank you very much. So maybe a question for both Raj and Roya, like from your perspectives, what are a lot of the threats that you see when you're trying to grow and scale your company in the clean tech sector? And where do partnerships like IAC and Innovate BC and NBC as well weave into that discussion? So first.
Absolutely. It's not a single threat, there are plenty. So I'll just take a few, which is actually surfacing in my mind. One of the biggest one that we would see is the regulatory one. So the uncertainty regulatory, especially the clean tech companies often face, the regulatory challenges due to evolving environmental policies and uncertainty in regulatory frameworks, which actually create a lot of barriers in the market entry, and it actually hinders the growth. So the second big concern and the constraint is the funding constraints. So the clean tech innovations require substantial investments, especially in research and development and scaling. So securing adequate funding can be very challenging, and especially for early stage companies due to the perceived risk associated with new technologies, and as well as longer return on investment timelines. And then market competition itself. So the clean tech sector is highly competitive. So with numerous players which are trying to get their market share. Established and emerging startups are constantly innovating and introducing new solutions, intensifying competition, putting pressure on the margins. Then technological barriers are mainly developing and commercializing part. So the clean tech solutions often requires overcoming significant technological barriers. And the advancement in material science, engineering, manufacturing, these are all very essential and huge capex that actually goes into it, which are also very time consuming to bring the product to the market. So now coming back to partnerships, which with entities like, say, IAC, BC, Innovate, plays a very crucial role in mitigating these threats. Funding support is very, very critical. And, like IAC and Innovate BC, they provide these funding opportunities, grants, incentives to support clean tech innovation, which is actually very, very significant to the function of the startups and also the SMEs and who are at a growth and a scale stage. Regulatory guidance, there is a lot of noise, and having to actually streamline this into perfection and actually at least to get that ball rolling becomes one of the challenging aspects for the companies, and they can't do it alone. So having these two entities come together and help these companies to actually structure that is a big thing. And networking and collaboration and introductions with IAC and Innovate BC and similar entities facilitate those networking opportunities. Collaboration is a big thing in the clean tech. Industry stakeholders, research institutions. Research institutions are also widely diversified, and having to kind of narrow down and actually reach out to the entities that we can actually collaborate with is a huge thing. And these partnerships actually enable the knowledge sharing, access to expertise, collaboration, R&D initiatives, fostering innovation and competitiveness becomes a crucial part in having to move this yardstick to the next level. Then market access and validation. It's another big area. So partnership with organizations like IAC and Innovate BC provides the clean tech companies with access to market insights, industry connections, validation opportunities. So by leveraging these resources, companies are identifying market trends, validating the technologies, and establishing the strategic partnerships, and also diving into and adoption the scalability aspects of it. So overall, these partnerships with organizations like IAC and Innovate BC are very vital in supporting the ecosystem within the clean tech companies and mitigating those threats and categorizing or catalyzing those growth and innovation in this particular sector.
Well, that's great. Thank you. That's a very, I think it really shows that as a clean tech company or a small company growing in BC, there is a lot of networking and collaboration opportunities to help grow their organizations. Roy, I wonder if you could maybe chat for 1 or 2 minutes too about where you see the threats that you're encountering scaling might be slightly differently, and then where Innovate BC and where some of the partnerships with IAC are helping you move past those.
Yeah, for sure. I think Raj put it really insightful. So all of the above. And in addition to that, I think operating and scaling up a clean tech startup is something that definitely keeps us on our toes constantly. There are numerous challenges to navigate, like as Raj beautifully put, like access to capital, scale up facilities, and remaining competitive and maintaining that advantage in the global scene is also really, really challenging on its own. And one thing in particular that I personally can relate to a lot as an early stage startup is accessing to funds for protecting your IP is a barrier for early stage startups. And because as we all know, filing patents, like protecting your IP and building those strategies could become quite costly. So that makes a lot of early stage startups to start thinking about prioritizing their IP protection and planning later in the technology development process. However, we have firsthand seen the importance of engaging with these topics early on. So working with IAC, particularly in early on, I think we started engaging over a year ago, provided us with invaluable insights into boosting our IP plans and identifying these crucial areas within IP that we may have overlooked, frankly. This partnership gave us the tools and resources to uncover potential blind spots and develop robust strategies to mitigate any of these risks. Lastly, it allowed us to not lastly, but the most important part of it is that it allowed us to deepen our competitive advantage by uncovering those untapped areas within our innovation landscape. And how it helped us to do that was through the fundings that we managed to get to hire these experts that brought a lot of value into the team and help us to actually build this robust IP strategy and positioning ourselves as for a long-term success and growth trajectories that we have for ourselves.
Thank you very much. So I made those two interesting comments that you both had, and I think I'll ask Mike to reflect on. IAC helped you engage and think about IP earlier on, and also both of you talked about market validation, the insights, the competitive advantage. So having that knowledge earlier on to make kind of better strategic decisions down the road. So maybe a question for Mike is, when should companies start thinking about IP? As a startup, you're trying to make payroll, you're worrying about regulatory, you're worried about funding, IP sometime in the long game. So when should they be really thinking about it, and where does IAC play in that role?
So I think they should start thinking about it right away, but the level of activity that they undertake should be aligned with the stage of the business. Right, you've got to build the technology, you've got to go sell it, you've got to create customers. Right, those things are really, really important. IP is valueless without that business success and without those revenue streams for it to touch upon. So I think those things need to remain priorities, but you need to scope out your thinking around IP and then scale your activity as the business grows. So I think that's really, really important. And we put a lot of emphasis on that. And a number of our programs that we deliver are really focused on that piece. When Raj and Roya spoke, they identified, I think, a string of challenges that their businesses face, and I think we see that across the companies that we talk to. The first is IP is expensive, right? It costs money and serious money to really build an IP position of substance. And we have funding mechanisms to help the companies that are part of our membership address some of those challenges. The second piece is time. Getting a single patent issued can take several years. Even trademarks or other forms of IP take time to process and gain value. And there's a gap there in time for when companies have a self-sufficient IP position and when they may get market traction. And that's where they're going to see threats appear. Large market incumbents potentially asserting IP to protect their revenue and protect their market share. And we have tools with our patent portfolio, tools with an insurance program to help companies address that time gap. But the third and most important piece is really understanding how to build an IP strategy that really links into how the business is going to compete. When we talk to early stage companies in particular about IP strategy, you'll often get very off the cuff or cursory answers of, we filed a provisional patent, we're on our core innovation, we're covered, or we're going to treat everything as a trade secret, and everybody we talk to is NDA'd, so we're good. Those that have progressed a little farther will start to think about the markets they're selling into and have some thought on that they need IP registered in some of those spaces, whether that be the United States, China, Japan, Europe, et cetera. But really, when you start to build sound IP strategy, you need to consider three really primary inputs, and none of those examples do so. The first is, what is your competitive environment, right? Who are you competing against? What are their advantages in the market? What are yours? How are you going to win business? What is that differentiation in the space that you have, and how are others countering that? You really need to understand that dynamic really, really well. What is your technology roadmap? So how are you going to build out your technology and products over time and really enhance those differentiators or add to them? And what are your plans there? And then the third piece is, what is the IP landscape, right? Who holds intellectual property that may limit those plans or put constraints on those plans? And a strategy needs to consider those three different pieces and come up with a plan as to how you're going to build your own IP position over time, right? What ownership do you need to establish to make a competitive difference so your business can grow? And what are the threats to that growth, and how are you going to mitigate those threats? And that allows you then to move forward in a moderated way. Again, depending on the state of your business, earlier stage companies are going to take single steps. As they grow and get bigger, they can afford to take larger steps or more steps at one time. But what IP position can you build over the next 5, 10, 15 years along with the business? What are the steps to address third-party threats? What are the practices and decision-making frameworks you're going to establish within your business that really build that IP culture within your organization? And it's that cultural piece that at the end of the day, I think really drives that ultimate success and what we're looking to see. But there's a lot of understanding that needs to go in that. And we're trying to support companies in getting there. We've established an IP maturity framework that allows us to assess where a company is when we first talk to them and really give them specific guidance of, here are a small handful of things you need to start with based on where you are, right? If you're more advanced, there's going to be some more advanced material we think you need to consider. If you're just getting started, again, we're going to match up that guidance with where they are and really help progress people through that process, so that we have more and more companies in Canada excelling at the practice of intellectual property, using IP to win business, using IP to drive revenue growth, secure market share. And that's what eventually attracts investment. Roya mentioned using IP as an attracting investment tool. It's when you link all those pieces together that you get those wins, and investors get excited and customers get excited, and we get a growing economy here in Canada as a result.
If I just add one last piece to that, like at the very beginning, you mentioned the complexity of understanding the IP strategy. I think I really, really want to highlight that as early stage company, and we all have different expertise. It's not often that the founders of a startup have IP or patent strategy building expertise, and navigating through that strategy itself is really, really complex. Deciding what remains trade secret, what would be a patent that you're filing, or, all of these little pieces, and at what point, because they can actually change throughout time as well, is really complicated.
Great point, Roy.
So, Roy, maybe I can put you on the spot and ask you, where I do want to get to Mike and ask him to talk a bit about the programming, because there are some questions in the Q&A about that. But Roya, what are some of the pieces that you pulled that you resourced from IAC, that the things you know now that you appreciate and didn't know beforehand, or funding you've used? How has IAC directly benefited you, and where are you leveraging that?
Yeah, for sure. When we started, frankly, I considered IP as something that would basically drive investment in. So it was just a tool for my understanding of that way. But actually diving deeper into it through the fundings that IAC provided us, we were able to hire experts that brought a whole new color into the IP and made something that, no offense, was kind of like boring topic to something really exciting for us to look forward to. And
Mike, you have made IP exciting. That is your new
There we go.
tagline.
That's my win for the week for sure.
yeah, because like honestly, like even reading through some of these things, it's just like, oh my gosh, like I need 5 espresso shots. But it was like it helps us to actually become semi-experts within this topic. We can still like claim that we're experts, but we know so much now that we didn't know before. One thing that, again, I think is worth emphasizing again and again and again is that we had a very clear idea of where our differentiators are, and using these resources and tools help us to do those landscaping that Mark was mentioning, to understand that, oh, it actually goes a lot beyond that. And that helps us to leverage a lot of our technology or even guide it towards the future. So not only thinking of our technologies going from A to Z, but also having a reverse engineering mindset of using those landscapings that we have done through these resources to go back, reflect, and see what are the areas or opportunities that we can kind of like pivot towards, or what were those areas that we could slightly navigate through to have a more robust IP strategy and IP protection.
And which services are IAC are you working directly with? Is it just the funding, or are there other pieces that you found incredibly useful, and the intelligence reports that you mentioned?
Yes, the intelligence reports definitely, and the funding so far. We are actually starting to leverage a lot more very shortly. But so far, even those 2 pieces have been so helpful that I'm really looking forward to the rest of it. And yeah.
Okay, thanks. And maybe Raj, I can ask you kind of the same question. What are the benefits you've pulled out of IAC and perhaps some other IP-based programs, just so other CEOs or executives on the call today can kind of understand the value they bring?
So for us, the IP part has been actually quite varied. It was a lot of times we are kind of lost in the little details. And a lot of times we understand, I think there is something here that we should protect, something there we should protect, and there's plenty there that we can protect. And the moment we actually had introduction to IAC, and one of the showstoppers is funding. How are we going to actually raise the capital to be able to get this kickstarted? And the moment we understood how this whole mechanism with IAC works, it just opened up right away, and we went and filed, I think within last 1 year, maybe 2 or 3 IPs, I think. And how that could actually possibly come true is just by going through the resources that was available online and giving that kind of a head start, talking to our IP agents, talking to our attorney, we are able to actually get all that concise model resonated into actually a piece of paper, and that is ready to file. Now, is this a very unique situation? Possibly yes and no. And is it more of a housekeeping situation? Yes and no. Is it a maintenance factor, like, to know, a presence of it doesn't motivate, but the absence of it demotivates. But the Kickstarter of having to start that filings has tremendously increased our confidence, which we haven't done for almost 6-7 years. And the moment we started releasing more and more product, now we started to get a little worried about having not to protect it. And there's also a clock that is ticking, and it has a 12-month window, and we have to take action. And it so happened that all these things really aligned. And I remember, Peter, when we first met for a quick few seconds, I wish we knew we had this when you started. And that was another quick booster to actually really get home, get things actually completely in order, and start filing this. Thanks to IAC to actually open those gates for us.
Thanks, Mike. There has been a couple of questions about how membership works, but also what things you fund, what services you have, and I know Raj said something really interesting. Once we understood what IAC did, we could unlock some pieces. So I think maybe now's actually a good time for you to chat through some of the supports you have for SMEs and why those supports are important and the types of ways that companies can access them.
Absolutely. So we have two levels of membership. We have a full membership, which has a $15,000 per year membership fee, and an associate membership, which is for earlier seed stage companies, which is free of charge. The full membership has access to our complete suite of programming and benefits. So first of all, we have a $15,000 credit for those members to apply against any and all IP expenses. And the reason for that $15,000 membership fee, $15,000 credit, we want to ensure companies have a line item in their budgets for intellectual property activity and have a consistent level of spend in a given year of membership. So that's a way of kind of enabling that. We also provide grants on top of that credit amount. So companies can compete for additional funding. The way that's structured currently is they file an application at multiple points in the year. We evaluate the IP strategy that the company submits and the relationship of the activity they're looking to fund to that strategy. So is it consistent with executing against that strategy? And is the company able to articulate the business goal they have around that activity? The second program we have is an education program where we're working to really advance the skill set of the entrepreneurs and innovators that are part of our member companies. And that really takes several forms. We have an online set of learning material so that individuals can access courses on their own time and progress through different areas of learning asynchronously. That is guided by our maturity framework. As I said, we evaluate companies when they come in and work to direct them to specific content, but they can work faster or slower with that depending on their interest and urgency in doing so. We also understand that putting that type of learning to work needs help. So we have a set of toolkits that support each course. So those could be checklists, templates, example of that learning put into practice so that companies can start to implement the things they're learning. And then we have workshops or one-on-one coaching available because we understand that there's always going to be follow-up questions. There's going to be guidance needed. So we have the ability to deploy our IP expertise into our member companies and help address issues they're trying to face. We've built a really strong team of IP experts here that I think is pretty unique in the ecosystem. We have, I think, over 8 people with a really diverse set of IP backgrounds, some at the front end in terms of creating new IP assets, some on the strategy side, some on the assertion or sort of back end side of IP. So we've seen really a broad range of situations, and I think either can directly address most questions or have a network of people that we can bring answers to bear pretty quickly. The third program is our IP intelligence reports. That's been mentioned a few times already. Many people on the call may be familiar with patent landscapes where people will research the patents in a particular technology field. That's part of what we do in our intelligence reports. But as I mentioned in my discussion of what forms good strategy, that needs to be informed with the dynamics of the market. So when we look at a given space, we're combining some basic market intelligence with patent landscape activity. So identifying who's playing in the space, what types of products are there, who are the up-and-comers coming into that space, and doing a bit of a breakdown between the international players and the Canadian players in each of those verticals, and then looking at who owns the IP relevant to the technologies that build those products, and doing some trends analysis of are there some deltas between who's having market success and who actually owns the IP and what that may mean for our member companies. The final 2 programs really are focused on freedom to operate. So as our companies start to get traction and grow, they're going to disrupt large market incumbents, and those incumbents are going to react with their own IP. We've identified within clean tech that there's at least 125 large multinationals with a history of litigating against SMEs internationally in the clean tech space. So we're doing two things to address that. First, we're building our own patent portfolio. We're out buying patents on the open market that create leverage against those large companies, so that if one of our member companies faces a dispute and they don't have their own IP to counter it, we can transfer IP out to that member company to give them additional information and try and balance that playing field. The second piece is you need more than just IP assets to level that playing field. You need money. So what we've done is set up an insurance program, and we pay for a baseline of insurance for our full members, $1 million of defensive coverage and $500,000 of enforcement coverage that companies can level up on top of that. So if they see additional amounts are needed, they can pay for that through a rate the collective has negotiated. And our insurance provider has said they're providing at a minimum a 35% discount over what companies would achieve on their own. So that's been a huge win for us. And we've also had several members say they tried to acquire IP insurance as an independent company and were turned down. But the insurance providers like the diversification of risks that a collective of companies provides. So they've been more willing to take on companies that are part of our activity. So that's our program that is currently in place. I did mention we have an associate membership level. That's free of charge. Those associate members get a reduced set of funding opportunities, also do not have access to the insurance or the patent portfolio pieces, but they participate in relevant education pieces and in the IP intelligence reports.
And what about funding for patent filings? Because I know that there's a question that was asked, but everyone always wants to know, how do I get my patent, my provisional or my new filing or my foreign extensions covered? And where do you play in that area?
Yeah, so as I said, we've got two funding mechanisms. The first for our full members is a $15,000 credit. So that can go to pay for any IP activity, but that includes patent filing. So if you've got a new filing you're looking to pursue, that $15,000 can be deployed against that. And then again, the second is our grant funding, which is competitive in nature. But if you apply and are selected as part of that process, a new patent filing, again, is one of the more frequent asks we get. But we see strategy work, we see landscape work, we see some trademark and branding work as part of those requests. What we're really looking is, again, is there a sound IP strategy in place, and is the activity consistent with that strategy and moving that strategy forward?
That's great. And just a side question, how would you, I know you talked about it earlier, but just to reiterate it, how would you assess if an IP strategy is sound or not? What are the variables you look at? And I'll just give you my comment. I often see people come and talk about, we're filing in these 3 countries and that's my strategy, and that's not a strategy, that's a foreign filing plan. So when you look for a sound IP strategy, what are the markers of success that you would look for, appreciating it will get more mature as a company grows?
So I look at what is there evidence of the 3 inputs I mentioned being considered. So in that strategy, can they articulate the competitive environment, right? What product they're taking to market, how that product is going to win, like what is their differentiation versus existing product, but also how are the other players in that space competing? I want to see that articulated to a certain level. The second piece is you're going to have a technology roadmap of how you're going to build out your R&D, how you're going to enhance your products over time. Can you articulate sort of how you're going to build that out over the next number of years? And then finally, is there a consideration of third-party IP or an awareness, at least, of third-party IP? If you haven't done sort of a detailed landscape study, are you at least aware of, there's 5 primary competitors in the space. We know 2 of the 5 have really strong IP positions and a history of litigating, for example, and at least an awareness of that. Or, there's 4 other startups we know of across the world, and a couple of them have some key patents. They may touch on what we're doing, and that level of awareness. And then as an output, right, a plan of what ownership you need to acquire over time. And really a sound decision-making framework of how are we going to decide, as Roya mentioned, between what we're going to protect as a trade secret, what we're going to patent. Do we need trademarks or copyright or other pieces? Is there a data play? But the ability to articulate sort of that build over time and to identify the risks that you're going to deal with. So those are the things we'd look at. Not all of them need to be there if it's an earlier stage company. We look for that. We understand that's going to build over time, but some of that needs to be there for us to say, this is in a good shape.
Okay. That's great. Maybe a question for both Roya and Raj. Looking into the future, what initiatives would you want IAC or Innovate BC or some of the other partners in the ecosystem that you feel would really help you grow? What are the pieces that you want to make sure you're continuing to leverage, or pieces that aren't existed right now that you'd like the organizations to start to think about?
I mean, as a SME operating in this particular tech space, we are in the hot tech. So we have a hardware and technology, particularly Canada and the United States. So our experiences often resonate those companies facing similar challenges and opportunities. So the clean techs across the country, they have the common hurdles. So that's basically funding, regulatory, market competition, technological barriers. And each company's journey is very unique by itself. And there are shared experiences and lessons that we learn and we contribute. And to better serve the broader ecosystem and also to address the need for the clean tech in Canada, organizations like IAC, Innovate BC can consider a few initiatives. Again, it's enhanced funding programs. Anything more is nice. Streamlining regulatory support, again, having to channel the kind of supports that regulatory systems evolve over a period of time. Then again, accessing this market intelligence, which is, again, a new canvas that we need to capture and recapture over time. Collaboration platforms, very vital. And again, this is something evolves over a period of time. And having that continuous engagement is very critical to having that line item that Mike has mentioned to actually cash in and cash out. Then capacity building programs. I think capacity building programs which develop a whole new training workshops, the mentorship, having our pipeline professionals come in and have that one extra component to be looked in right at the start stage, and those resources which are completely digitized are very helpful. And often the resources and the technology commercialization and the growth strategies become very cohesively binding as we move forward. So again, I think by implementing these initiatives and supportive ecosystems, I think organizations like IAC, Innovate BC can better serve the broader clean tech. And now, since you're talking about having to expand this program, just not for clean tech, but that can actually have a little bigger canvas, will be something that will catalyze the innovation, the sustainability, and also the economic growth for country as a whole.
Okay. That's great. Thank you. Roya, maybe just 30 seconds. You can look at the same piece. Where do you think we should be adding more supports? I do want to get to one or two questions before we wrap up today.
Yeah, no, for sure. I just want to emphasize on the collaborative piece that Raj was mentioning. I think initiating programs to foster more collaboration across nation would be incredibly beneficial. I think it's no secret to all of us that in Canada, we can see innovation focus is often divided among different provinces. For example, like Nova Scotia may be more deeply focused on clean tech and biomanufacturing scale up, versus BC might be more prioritizing like therapeutic innovation. So building a bridge and somehow programs to facilitate these programs can actually strengthen all of our growth and success.
Great. Thanks. We do have a couple of questions. I think there's 8 or 9 questions, and we don't have time for all of them, but I'm going to maybe focus on a few. There's a question that I think there's 2 of them that actually tie together. One question is around, protection of IP is time consuming and cost intensive, but if you don't have IP, you can't take the steps forward. So it's the chicken and the egg situation. And then there's actually another question too around, the climate and clean tech is usually a longer process to get things to market. TRL, getting the higher TRL levels is very high. So how do you get that IP protection, but you can't protect globally because you don't have the funding coming in? So again, it's the chicken and the egg, but a bit at a later stage. So if I was to synthesize my question for the group here is, how do you find that balance? IP protection, Mike, you talked about earlier about we need to talk about it first, but what are some early stage pieces that you can do that are cost effective, keeping in mind you might need to protect globally, but you don't have revenue coming in. So how do you fix that dilemma?
I just want to chime in here because my experience, our startup is early stage. So I really relate to that topic, especially like 2 years ago when we started working with IAC. I think there are a lot of really great resources like IAC and a couple more for IP protection that can definitely help with like building the strategy as well as execution. It's just getting your hands dirty at this point, because to be fair, like for us, the chicken and egg situation, I deeply, deeply connect to, because investors want to see assets being protected before giving you funding, which then if you don't have the funding, how are you going to protect yourself? And like, again, it's like always a back and forth situation, but it just, being in Canada, we are lucky to have these sort of like opportunities like IAC and a lot more to leverage and be able to like execute those. So I think it's just the first step. Taking the actual first action is the best step to take as an early stage company. Just don't wait, just do it.
Mike?
So I always have a reaction when people talk about the need for global coverage. And I get that we want to enable access to a large number of markets. But I think for an early stage company, that's going to be a red flag, right? That should be in the strategy of down the road, you're going to build to that. But starting to try and achieve global coverage, I think is a distraction and a waste of limited resources. So you need to be really focused, and that building the strategy, to me, any sort of strategy, whether it be business strategy, IP strategy, name a strategy, it's about enabling focus and what you're going to say no to, and where are you going to target your first steps. So I think find a place you can start to build a foundation, get that foothold, whether that be a Canadian patent, a US patent, set of trade secrets that you've documented in a cohesive way. Whatever that first step is that's relevant to your business, get that start underway, and have a plan that's going to grow over time as your business evolves. Don't try and do it all at once. Don't try to go global in year one, maybe not even in year 5. You're going to need to build to that. Understanding, you're not going to have the complete protection that if you had unlimited resources, maybe you could have achieved if you were able to do that from day one. But being a business leader is about dealing with the constraints that you have and optimizing to those constraints. And if you build a plan that considers those and steps things out over time, I think that's going to lead to the best success.
Okay. So maybe final words. We are wrapping up, going into 10:55. I want to make sure we're finishing on time. I can give Raj and Roya final words on what's your advice to the attendees today when it comes to both IP as well as innovation and scaling your companies. What direction would you give them? Mike, I have a different question for you though.
I think one thing that I do want to emphasize is something that I've been saying along the whole panel. Engaging with an IP strategist or expert early on is definitely crucial, because there is no necessarily like formula fits all when it comes to IP, especially in innovative landscape, that you can just like educate yourself and go execute. There is no such thing. And we have the IP strategy is really agile and it has to be adaptable. So engaging with like a really good IP strategy early on, although that it may sound expensive, but it's going to pay off at the end of the game and prevent a lot of the mistakes that unknowingly an early stage startup may make.
That's great. Raj?
Yeah, that's very critical. And it actually clears the checkpoints. And even if you're not ready, by having to get that early on strategy going, will at least prepare us when we are ready. And I guess since you talked about the revenue is also very important, and we should be able to sell. And there's actually a window of 12 months. So I think if this particular product is developed on a proprietary basis for a few months, and then you got your NDAs locked in a small little team, and field testing and having the product someone buy, and even $1 gets in, it just increases the confidence. And then again, action cures all fears. The strategy starts to roll in automatically, and 1 year later, we see things happen.
Raj, I'm going to steal that quote. I love that. Action cures all fears. I like that.
Mike, final words. What's up next for IAC, and what can the companies on the call today expect from supports from you over the next few years?
So basically, with our new funding, is continuing to build out our programs. I think we've established a great foundation of education content. We want to start to scale that up into some more advanced and sophisticated areas. So that's something to keep a lookout on. And the other is really engaging really directly with our member companies with our IP maturity framework. So they understand where they stand. They've got really clear guidance of what's next. They understand the patents in our patent portfolio that may be relevant to them down the road. Just increasing that level of understanding, sophistication, ability to use these tools to further their business and give them guidance. So I think it sounds really simple. It's going to be more complicated to implement, but that's our hope, is to really get a group of companies really pushing this forward. Canada dramatically underperforms as a nation in terms of IP performance. And starting with this group of companies, we're really working hard to change that.
Great. Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate all the work you and the team are doing. And thank you to our two panelists as well today for coming and sharing your stories, and as well to NBC for co-sponsoring and the event with IAC.